How is that human fighting? You know what that is? That's actual fighting. You know what boxing is? Well, boxing is a very limited form of fighting. It's kind of a silly agreement. Say, like, we hate each other, we're going to fight, we're going to duke it out man to man, but we're only going to use our hands. That's it. What ultimate fighting is, it's the actual sport of fighting.
Boxing and MMA are two completely different art forms that deserve a bunch of respect in their own right.
But I'm a more dedicated athlete at this point and a more mature athlete, and I'm going to prove it to the world.
But why is it that big fans of either sport feel the need to point out that they hate the other?
The history, no matter what bullfights MMA shoves down our goddamn throats, they will never rival, never beat the build-up of a good boxing match, never.
Now, I'm certainly not speaking for everyone here. I have a lot of MMA fans that subscribe to this channel that have expressed how our videos have helped spark up a bit of passion for the art of pugilism. From a personal standpoint, I really enjoy big UFC cards and watching back some old crazy pride fights where the rules were essentially thrown out the window. But nevertheless, it's a debate that deserves a closer look from a non-biased standpoint. For instance, I'm sure most of you are aware of the podcast host Joe Rogan, and he said a few things a little while back that were completely wrong about the politics in boxing, claiming UFC is above and beyond boxing from a viewership standpoint. Now, that's all well and good if it was true, but it's not. Just bear in mind, Joe also said Joshua versus Klitschko was a boring fight, so I've got a sneaky feeling he might skip out on some of the major fights going down in the boxing world. Of course, no disrespect to Joe. I'm a huge fan of his podcasts, but I'd prefer to listen to him talk about psychedelics, conspiracy theories, and UFC stuff rather than boxing, because without a doubt he has a more vast knowledge on those matters than myself.
If you're listening, I'm not a hater. I am not a hater.
So without any further ado, today we'll be taking a look at everything you need to know about the two greatest fighting entities in the world.
See, the slightest move Marquez makes, Mayweather senses it.
The UFC is still a baby in terms of its history, and quite honestly, the sport was founded by pure luck according to President Dana White. The movement started around 1992 when business entrepreneur Art Davies put together some high-level mixed martial arts tournaments combining masters from various disciplines to see which art form was the greatest. The business success in these tournaments quickly saw close to 30 different millionaire entrepreneurs invest in a new company that would be known as WOW Promotions. In 1993, UFC 1 took place, featuring a hand-picked group of excellent fighters from various disciplines, such as karate, wrestling, kickboxing, and boxing. The show was supposed to be a one-time pay-per-view event, but the success led to more and more frequent events in the coming years. Approaching the late 90s, UFC really started to find its place in the sports entertainment industry after an uphill battle against controversies surrounding the brutal nature of the sport. They tweaked a few rules to become more safe, but still had entertainment for fight fans like myself who like to see someone get knocked out every once in a while.
Again, on the bike, out, cold, wow.
First round.
The mid-2000s was when things really got popping for the UFC. Pay-per-view numbers skyrocketed from an average of 100,000 buys to around 500,000, which is extremely high compared to any other pay-per-view platform in the world at that time. The origins of boxing take us back to around 2000 BC, and the sport was fully popularized by the Greeks around 600 BC, becoming one of the main spectacles in the ancient Olympic Games. The bouts were fought with two men standing in an upright position, taking turns throwing hooks to each other's heads until somebody was knocked out. There were no weight classes, so it's pretty easy to imagine most of the heavyweights were victorious. After all, not everyone can fight like Spartacus. The Romans later adopted the sport, but turned it into something horrific and cruel, even by their standards. We would go deeper into it, but YouTube would likely regard that source material as non-advertiser friendly, and honestly it takes a long time to put these videos together, so just Google it if you're interested. Ancient times aside, boxing as we know it today was founded in 1876 by John Chambers when he imposed the Marquis of Queensberry's rules among the, at the time, thriving bare-knuckle boxing scene. Pretty much the exact same rules for the sport are still used to this day. In terms of popularity, boxing has had its ups and downs, but mostly ups. Being a heavyweight champion in any era of the sport has always been a major deal. Well, except for the modern-day alphabet belt era, where a man like Charles Martin can hold a belt.
A punch that will reverberate around the world of heavyweight boxing. Anthony Joshua takes the IBF belt from Charles Martin, whose reign is brief and painful.
Every sport needs its legends. Tiger Woods, Pele, Babe Ruth, and Michael Jordan certainly raised the bar and left a big legacy in their respected sports.
Michael! The crowd on their feet, he's split defender.
But who are the greats in boxing and MMA? Muhammad Ali is often regarded as one of, if not the greatest sportsman ever. Rightly so, too, as he was a dominant champion in an amazing era of heavyweights. Jack Dempsey was one of the most popular men in America in the 1920s, and it didn't matter whether he won or lost, they just loved him. Sugar Ray Robinson, Ray Leonard, Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather, and Manny Pacquiao held it down for the smaller guys. But it's always been the big men that the majority want to watch, just for the pure fact we love seeing knockouts.
Right hand drives Lakovic into the ropes. Down he goes.
Which brings us to the man I personally feel is the most popular fighter since Ali, Iron Mike Tyson. No robe, no socks. Tyson was just about pure boxing business. Casual fans couldn't care less about the level of competition. They just wanted to see Iron Mike flatten somebody, and that's what they got.
Measured him up. Missed with that, not with that.
Even the off-the-rails version of Tyson was captivating the fans as he assaulted people outside the ring and bit people's ears off in the ring. We loved it. I think the nature of it takes us back to our Roman ancestors.
A barrage by Tyson. The referee, John Coyle, steps between, and he continues. Coyle's trying to stop it.
When it comes to UFC, it boils more down to greatness within the octagon itself, rather than the celebrity status of the fighters, putting McGregor aside for a moment.
You've been fighting bums all your life. You've never been on this stage. You've never been against a guy like me. You're an absolute bum.
Anderson Silva would be my personal opinion for the GOAT status. The long title reigns and dominant performances speak for themselves. Chuck Liddell was my sort of fighter to watch, a natural puncher with the will to win. Georges St. Pierre is an outright phenom who could do just about everything better than everyone else, and a modern fighter like John Jones is the definition for the advancement in the sport. It's hard to think of a certain discipline that can defeat his fighting style because he does everything better than you. His breathtaking skills and calmness in the octagon put him in a category of his own, in my opinion.
He is perhaps the most spectacular athletic talent we've ever seen inside the octagon. It's been a pleasure watching him grow to where he is today.
The numbers don't lie, so let's take a look at some of the biggest events from the sport's history. Boxing has always sold out ridiculously large arenas and stadiums going right back to the bare-knuckle days. Julio Cesar Chavez versus Greg Hagan in 1993 used to hold the record for the largest attendance at around 130,000, until the little-known Dmitry Chudinov broke the record in 2013 with a reported 200,000 in attendance. That was obviously before Chris Eubank Jr. got his hands on him and beat the living bejesus out of him.
I don't think I've ever hit somebody so many times, and the guy hasn't gone down, you know.
There was almost a moment at the 12th you were almost applauding him. But
I had to stop beating him up and just say, you know what, this guy's a hell of a fighter. Because
British fight fans have always come out in droves for their man. Eubank vs. Ben paved the way for epic showdowns like Froch vs. Groves at Wembley, and later Joshua vs. Klitschko that sold out 90,000 in the stadium. It's getting to the point now where they need to build a new stadium for AJ, as the demand is through the roof. Being a heavyweight with a 100% KO streak certainly contributes towards that. In terms of viewing figures, it's unfair to match the two considering UFC is almost always exclusively on the pay-per-view platform, so comparing just those numbers makes more sense.
That ends it all, dude. I'm gone.
Most of the top 10 UFC highest numbers have come in the last 3 years, with rising stars like Conor McGregor and Ronda Rousey dominating the market. A couple years prior, Brock Lesnar also ranked amongst his peers, bringing in a very high consistent viewership. The good thing about the UFC is, great fighters amongst the sport that are not exactly household names can still do extremely big numbers with the right promotion, and of course, huge undercards, which has become expected in the sport at this point.
UFC 200 is an enormous historic event for the UFC. They are putting on one of the greatest cards in the history of the sport.
Floyd Mayweather Jr. is dominating the boxing scene, with the Pacquiao fight trumping every fighting event in history by far. But I assume those numbers will be shattered on August 26th. Mike Tyson also dominated the market in his time, but unfortunately, most of his biggest events resulted in him losing. Hey, I guess fans want to tune into a contest that they think is competitive. Well, for the most part.
And here we go. And McNeely, as advertised, comes right at Mike Tyson. Down goes McNeely. Seconds into the first round.
In the current market, UFC is slowly starting to take over. But can anyone explain to me why the fight purses are so vastly different? For instance, British welterweight contender Amir Khan has earned more money from his fights than Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, Anderson Silva, Brock Lesnar, and Chuck Liddell combined, despite not pulling in 5% of the combined pay-per-views. And that's just one example. There are at least 50 other boxers that hold the same feat. Just let that sink in for a moment.
But the thing that I like about Amir Khan is he very interesting. He has a pretty cool fan base. So that fight would make a lot of sense.
The wide range of disciplines in UFC has attracted fighters from all different sports, such as basketball, American football, and of course, boxing. Usually, the only boxers to cross over are past their prime heavyweights looking to land a big power punch before they get slammed to the ground and beaten to a pulp. Notable standouts are Butterbean, James Toney, and former heavyweight contender Julius Francis. Finding a bit more success was former heavyweight champion Ray Mercer, and of course, the most successful crossover star being the Ronda Rousey conqueror, Holly Holm.
What does this feel like to you? Does this even feel real?
You know what? I getting in here, I had just so much love and support. I just felt like, how could I not do this with all that love, you know?
Once, digging around for a bit of information about UFC fighters that have laced him up in the ring, I was shocked to see great fighters like Vitor Belfort, Nick Diaz, heavyweight legend Mark Hunt, and Kimbo Slice had all put their skills to the test in boxing. And the most shocking of all was the GOAT himself, Anderson Silva, competing only twice, with a rather forgettable 50% win ratio. Some fighters adapted better than others, with Slice arguably being the best suited to the sport, retiring with a record of 7-0 with 6 KOs. Now, we couldn't finish this video without giving our opinion on the upcoming Mayweather vs. McGregor clash in August, and quite honestly, I think it's a fun event that is actually helping shine the light back on the best sport in the world.
Floyd Mayweather, 1, 2, 3. There's a birthday song.
This is the biggest fight ever in combat sports history, and we're trending worldwide every day, and the media coverage, the fans talking about it, it's been incredible.
I thought press conferences were going to be a bit more exciting than they have been, but I don't think Floyd's brain ticks quite as fast as it did when he was younger, which essentially has made the whole build-up drag on a little bit, as Floyd says the same things over and over again.
When Conor McGregor is up there speaking his piece, speaking from the heart, saying what he have to say, I'm sitting there quiet and respectful.
I would say McGregor has won the battle of the mind game so far, but I can't really see that helping him out on fight night. After all, myself, along with many others, regard Floyd as the best boxer of this era. One thing I think is worth pointing out is the fact Floyd is an aging fighter, and that has been apparent in his recent contests. Not enough for him to finally take a loss, but deterioration is something that even the very best fighters cannot avoid. If McGregor was to pull off the unthinkable, it would probably be down to his awkward style, throwing unorthodox punches and making Mayweather have to think a different way as to how he normally does. Or, as middleweight champion Billy Joe Saunders put it, break a bone and hope for the best.
So if I was arguing McGregor, I would go straight out that ring. I wouldn't worry about punching him. I'd grab him,
and I'll try to snap a bone or do something straight away. That's what I would try and do. I'll try to choke him just to let him know. So then all of a sudden he's thinking, oh, I'm not getting that clinch no more. So then he's thinking about not getting in the clinch, he's thinking about running, then let him chase him down. But what I would do first of all, I would love to see McGregor do it. And Conor, if he ever watches this, I swear to God, I would love to see you do it.
How do you guys see the fight going? Let us know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and please remember to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Until next time, this is Boxing Legends TV, signing off.